Disrespect does not always arrive loud. It does not always come with a raised voice or a slammed door or words so obviously cruel that everyone in the room knows exactly what they witnessed. Sometimes disrespect comes quietly. Sometimes it comes wearing a smile. Sometimes it comes dressed as a joke, delivered in a bright room full of laughing people, in front of cameras, in front of strangers, in front of a live audience that has no idea it is about to witness something that will stop the entire show cold. Sometimes disrespect comes from the one person in the room who is supposed to be the safest. And sometimes, on a perfectly ordinary afternoon on one of the most watched game shows in America, one woman stood at a podium next to her husband and absorbed a moment of it without making a single sound. And the only person in that entire building who refused to let it pass was the man holding the microphone. That man was Steve Harvey. And what happened next was not television. It was truth. The studio was full and warm the way it always is on a Family Feud taping day. The audience had come in excited, dressed their best, buzzing with the particular energy of people who had waited a long time for this moment and were determined to enjoy every second of it. The lights were up. The set was bright. Two families stood behind their podiums, smiling, competitive, comfortable enough to be loud and loose and real in front of the cameras. Everything felt easy. Everything felt safe. The kind of room where nothing goes wrong because everyone is there to have a good time, and the host is one of the warmest human beings on American television, and the whole thing is designed to make people feel good about being alive. Steve Harvey was moving through the early rounds the way he always does, working both families, drawing out their personalities, making strangers feel like they had known him for years. He was asking questions, reading answers off the board, laughing at the ones that deserved it, and milking the ones that were almost right for every drop of comedy they contained. The audience was with him completely. The room had that rhythm that only comes when everything is working and everyone in it knows it. Then the husband opened his mouth. It was one line, one sentence delivered with a grin that told the room he thought it was funny, that expected the room to agree, that arrived wrapped in just enough lightness to make anyone who reacted to it look like they had no sense of humor. Steve Harvey had asked him something playful about his wife, the kind of question the show uses to pull families into gentle, honest moments about each other. The husband barely paused. He looked at his wife, and then he looked at the camera, and he said that she would not know the answer because she spent more time spending his money than paying attention to anything else. A handful of people laughed. The nervous kind. The kind that fills 2 seconds of silence before a room figures out what it actually heard. The wife did not laugh. She did not flinch. She did not make a sound. She did what women who have heard that particular kind of comment before learn to do, without even realizing they have learned it. She absorbed it. She kept her face composed and her posture steady, and she looked forward, and for the length of one single breath, her eyes moved downward, just slightly, just barely, in the way that eyes move when something lands on a person that they were not surprised to receive, but still had to make room for somewhere inside themselves. She was not surprised. That was the thing that said everything. Steve Harvey was watching her when it happened. He caught it the way a man catches something he was already looking for without knowing he was looking. His smile did not fall dramatically. There was no sharp intake of breath, no theatrical pause for effect. Something simply shifted behind his eyes, quietly and completely, and the easy rhythm of that studio afternoon came to a stop the way a river stops when something solid drops into its center. He went still. And when Steve Harvey goes still on that stage, the room learns immediately that the show is no longer the show. The audience felt it before they understood it. The laughter drained out of the room the way air leaves a space when a window closes, gradually and then completely, and several hundred people who had come to a game show taping to laugh and clap and watch families compete sat up slightly in their seats and went quiet without being asked to. Because something real was happening in front of them. And the human body always knows the difference between entertainment and truth, even when the mind has not yet caught up. Steve Harvey turned toward the husband slowly. His voice when he spoke was low and even and completely without performance. There was no television in it.no timing. No setup. Just a man speaking directly to another man in a room full of witnesses, saying something he meant with every word. He told him he needed him to understand something right now. He said that the woman standing next to him had walked into that building as his wife. She had chosen him. She had shown up in public beside him, in front of cameras, in front of strangers, in front of a room full of people, and what she was owed in every single room she ever walked into beside him was his respect. Not a punchline, not a joke about money or attention or any other comfortable shortcut men reach for when they want to make themselves bigger by making someone else smaller. Her respect. Simple, unconditional, non-negotiable. The husband's grin was gone. He was listening in the way people listen when something true reaches past every defense they came in with and finds the part of them that already knows better. Steve Harvey was not done. He said that disrespect dressed as humor was still disrespect. He said that a man who tears his woman down in public, even softly, even with a laugh attached to it, is telling the entire room something about what he does behind closed doors when no one is watching. He said that the words a man uses about his wife in front of other people are not small. They are a portrait. They are a window. And every person sitting in that audience had just looked through that window and seen something that the husband may not have intended to show them, but had shown them completely. The wife was very still. Her hands were folded in front of her, fingers pressing into each other, jaw set with the quiet discipline of a woman managing something internal that she had not planned to manage here today. She was not crying. She was doing something harder than crying. She was holding herself together in public with the kind of dignified composure that belongs to women who have spent a long time being stronger than the situation required. And it was written in every careful line of her body, visible to anyone willing to look. Steve Harvey looked at her for a moment. Then he looked back at the husband. And when he spoke again, he was no longer speaking only to one man on a game show stage. He was speaking to every man in that audience and every man who would eventually watch from his couch at home and recognize, uncomfortably, some version of himself in what he was hearing. He said that relationships do not fall apart in the big moments most of the time. They fall apart in moments exactly like this one. The small dismissals. The jokes that were not jokes. The comments that came so casually that the person delivering them forgot the words before the sentence was finished, while the person receiving them carried those words home and felt their weight long after the room had moved on. He said that disrespect does not announce itself most of the time. It accumulates. It builds quietly in the person absorbing it, in layers, over years, until one day the damage is so deep that no single good moment can reach it anymore. He said that the most powerful thing any man in that room could do, any man watching at home, was look at the woman he had chosen and make absolutely certain she knew, not assumed, not hoped, but knew without question that she was valued, that she was protected, that standing next to him in any room in the world was the safest place she would ever stand. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The audience sat inside that truth and let it do what truth does when it is spoken clearly in a room full of people who needed to hear it. The husband looked at his wife. A long look. The kind that happens when a man sees his own reflection somewhere he was not expecting to find it, and the reflection is more honest than he was prepared for. His wife looked back at him, and the emotion she had been managing so carefully behind her composed expression surfaced briefly, not dramatically, just genuinely. The way real feeling surfaces when a person has been seen in a place they expected to be invisible. Steve Harvey placed his hand briefly on the husband's arm. Not a gesture of victory. Not a judgment being pressed into skin. Just one man to another. The quiet transfer of something serious and necessary. He told him simply to take care of her. He said it once. He did not repeat it because once was exactly enough. Then the show went on. The families played. The board lit up and the wrong answers were funny and the audience warmed back into laughter and the game moved forward the way it always does. But the room was different now. Not broken. Not uncomfortable. Different in the way that rooms are different after something real has moved through them. Deeper somehow. More awake. Carrying the particular kind of warmth that only comes when honesty has been allowed to exist in a space where dishonesty would have been much easier and much safer and much more convenient for everyone involved. What Steve Harvey stopped that show for was not a dramatic moment in the way television defines dramatic. There were no raised voices. Nothing shattered. Nobody walked off the stage. What he stopped the show for was one woman's eyes moving downward for the length of one breath, and his refusal to pretend he had not seen it. He stopped it because disrespect had walked into that bright room wearing a smile and a punchline, and he had recognized it immediately for exactly what it was, Because a man who has lived a real life and paid real prices for real lessons does not need a long time to identify something he has encountered before. He stopped it because someone had to. Because the easiest thing in that moment, the most professional thing, the thing that kept the schedule and protected the comfort of the room and asked nothing difficult from anyone, was to let it go, to laugh it off, to move the game forward and let that woman stand next to her husband and absorb that moment alone in a room full of people who chose not to see her. Steve Harvey chose to see her, and then he chose to say something about it. And that choice, that single quiet deliberate choice made on an ordinary taping afternoon under bright studio lights in front of a live audience, is the thing that nobody in that room forgot. Not because it was loud, because it was true. Because disrespect had entered the building and a man with a microphone had looked it directly in the face and told it clearly, calmly, and without a single moment of hesitation, that it had come to the wrong show.